This video is to show you how to use the injection molding machine. The injection molding machine is going to get very hot once we turn it on, so you will want to be very careful with this machine. This area of the machine is what heats up and melts the plastic so that it can go inside a mold to be formed into some kind of object. Now, to turn on the machine, there's an on-off switch here on the side. There's two black buttons, and there's a red light on the inside of those two and between those two. You'll want to push the on button so that that red light turns off. That means the machine's on, it's heating up. There's a dial here. You'll want to make sure that is set to approximately 400 degrees, between 400 and 450 degrees, so that the machine will heat up properly and it will melt the plastic to the right temperature. Now, when you're using the machine, you want to make sure that this purge block, there's a block right there that goes underneath the black part of the machine, that is clamped in, because as the machine is heating up, it's going to expand or get larger. And there's a nozzle on the bottom that will possibly come out if that purge block isn't in place when you turn on the machine. So make sure that is in while the machine's heating up. So it'll take a few minutes for the machine to heat up, so make sure that the green light isn't on yet. If it's on, that means that something's wrong with the dial. So that green light will turn on once the machine is heated up. There's a thermometer in the front that you'll want to pay attention to. So once it's between 400 and 450 degrees, then we're at the correct temperature. So we'll have to wait a few minutes for this to heat up. Once it gets hot, then what we'll need to do is we're going to take our plastic pellets. We're going to fill the machine up with the plastic pellets and let those melt, and then we'll show you what to do from there. Once the machine is hot, you'll want to check and make sure the temperature is correct here on the thermometer. It should be set between 400 and 450 degrees. If it's too hot, it may burn the plastic. If it's not hot enough, the plastic won't go into the mold correctly. So please check the temperature before proceeding. There are several items that you're going to need to get from your tray that's in the cabinet. You're going to need this metal piece here that's going to go on the machine. That's a handle extension to be able to push down and to inject the plastic into the mold. You're going to need your plastic pellets. It already has the pigment, green pigment mixed in with it, so you don't need to mix those. You're going to need your molds, which are two halves, and they have a carving in the inside. That's where the plastic's going to go and form a shape. You're going to need the cutters. You're going to need, for this, the screwdriver blade to make your project. So the first thing you'll need to do is take your mold. You're going to need to put the blade into the mold and put the two halves together. And make sure that blade is all the way in, so it should just, very end should just be sticking out. We're going to then place that mold into the machine. So you'll have a pair of pliers in your tray that you'll need to use, because where that purge block was, there's some plastic coming out because there's a nozzle and that plastic sort of oozes out. So we're going to take that purge block right there out of the clamp, and we're going to then clean it so that we can put our mold in. So you'll need to get a pair of pliers from your tray. You'll also need a scooper. That's one of these here. One of these scoopers and a pair of pliers as well to do this activity. So we're going to take this purge block out, and we're going to open up the machine. There's a hole here that we're going to pour our plastic pellets into. So we're going to take our scooper and we're going to tilt the cup so that we could scoop that plastic into it. And you want to be careful we don't make a big mess. So work slowly, pay attention to what you're doing. We're just going to slowly pour that plastic into the machine. And it's going to start to melt that plastic. It'll take a few minutes for it to melt. And what I like to do is kind of just gently push down that plastic, because there's enough plastic in the machine once you get it filled that it will be enough for 2 projects. So you don't want to overfill it. You want to be careful, because if you get plastic all over the machine, it's going to start to melt and burn and smell and gunk up the machine. So you want to do it very carefully. Once we have the machine filled with our plastic pellets, we'll want to wait a few minutes until those plastic pellets look like what's coming out of the bottom here. It should look like just kind of a big clump of plastic. You don't see pellets, it's just one big glob. That's what we want to see. Now I use the pair of pliers to grab that because I don't want to grab it with my hands because it's 400 degrees hot. So when you take that plastic, set it on the table somewhere that you're not going to touch it, like behind the machine, somewhere off to the side. Because if you get that on your hands, it will not come off. It'll burn your skin very badly. So you want to avoid touching that plastic until later, until it's completely cool. Then we can move it, throw it away. But just leave it on the table for now. So we're going to wait till that plastic's melted, and if we wait long enough, it'll just be one big glob. If you check and look inside the machine and it still looks like there's pellets, then it's not hot enough. It hasn't melted all the way. It won't work. So while that's heating, we're going to need to make sure we know how this is going to work as far as using the machine. We're going to take our mold here and we're going to be putting that in place where our purge block was. So this mold will go face up with this hole in the top, should be facing up, because that's going to match up with the little nozzle in the bottom of the machine, because the plastic's going to go inside there. And we're going to clamp it into place. And this clamp should go clamp all the way down so the mold doesn't come apart. We're going to need our handle extension. We're going to place that on the machine here, and we're going to hold the very end because it'll help us push down on the machine. So that handle extension should go right on like that. Okay, and then we'll use that to push down on the machine. So we'll zoom out a little bit so we can see everything. So where you want to hold it is right here. That's where you want to hold it when you're pushing down, and you're going to need to push down with quite a bit of force to get that plastic to go into the mold. Now there's some plastics oozing out of the bottom here, so before we put the mold in, we'll make sure that's all out. And now we're going to work quickly. We're going to put the mold in, make sure it's against the screw on the left side, and then we'll clamp it in place. We'll push down. And then when we start to see the screwdriver blade move, when it just starts to move, we stop. We unclamp the mold and we take out the mold. And you want to be careful you don't touch the plastic or touch this part of the machine. It's very hot. And when we open it, we should have the object inside. In this case, it's the screwdriver handle. And once you're done with yours, if you're working with a partner, your partner can come and do theirs. You probably should have enough plastic for both in here. And for the second object you'll make, which is the tag, you won't need any parts to put in the mold, like the screwdriver. You'll just need to get your mold and the key, which looks like this. You'll need that, and you just put the two halves together. There's nothing that goes on the inside. And we'll put that in, we'll clean out our nozzle. And if you're working with a partner, you'll probably need to refill the machine before doing this part, before doing these next one. And we do the same thing. And this time when we push down, we want to watch the top of the mold, and when the plastic starts coming out, we start seeing ooze out of the top, that's when we know it's full. So you go nice and slow. When you start seeing it come out of the top, you stop, take the mold out carefully, very carefully. Take the mold apart, and we should have our keychain. And the keychain, you can get the chain that's in the tray. And the chain just is a small little chain. It's got two parts. It's got an open end on the right side here, and it's got a locking end on the left side. So we put the chain through the tag, and we can simply put the ball on the one end into the locking mechanism on the other, and once you get that first ball in, then you just pull tightly and it'll lock it in, and you will probably need to cut some of the extra plastic off the top. That's what those green cutters are for. So we'll use those green cutters, and we'll cut those, anything that's around the outside, because sometimes a mold isn't perfectly sealed and some plastic might escape. So you just use those green cutters and cut the rest on the tag. And then if you want to use the paint markers, you can color it, but you don't have to. And that is using the injection molder.